Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm gonna go through all of the books that I've read in 2021. I have read 79 books, so I will not talk about each one of those, but what I will do is I will do it in a kind of rating system. So I'll start with my least favorite books and then go through my star ratings up to my top 10. I will talk more about the 2 worst books I've read and then the 10 top books I've read this year, and the other ones I will just mention. I think that's always an interesting video to go back and of course my camera died right there and I have no idea what I was saying, but yeah, if you want to see a more specific stats video, I will also upload one of those. So yeah, you can go and check that one out if you're interested in my reading stats. So let's get started. My worst book of the year with 2 stars was The Furies by Katie Lowe. I honestly only finished that book because it was part of the Dark Academics book club and it was horrible. This book I don't even remember a lot about. It's about this girl who, I think she goes to a new school and there's this kind of like clique of like very weird girls, and she becomes part of that and she becomes very close and entangled with one of those girls. But then there's also been a dead girl and it's not really sure how this clique is connected to the dead girl. But yeah, it was just so pretentious. It was the most pretentious book I've read this year, and I think that's always the kind of problem when you have these dark academic kind of books. They can get pretentious really quickly, and that one, I mean, the main character, like everything, it was just so horrible. I really did not like it. So yeah, that was my worst book of the year. Second place is Die Champagnerkönigin, a German book by an author called Petra Durst-Benning. That one was also just very boring. I don't remember a lot about it. I read it because my best friend gifted it to me. I have since given it to another friend, and yeah, I was just glad when I had finished that. You will see the other 2 books of that trilogy on this list as well. So yeah, that was something. That was definitely something. Like, not a genre I enjoy at all. So those were my 2 worst books of the year, and now we're gonna start with the 3-star books. With 3 stars we have Grimm by Sibylle Berg. I think it's actually called Grime. I don't remember. Bella Clara by Petra Durst-Benning. Middlemarch by George Eliot. Find Me by Tara Mafi. This is novellas set in the Shadow Me series. Imagine Me by Tahereh Mafi, which is the last book in the Shadow Me series. Der Junge, der vom Frieden träumte by Michelle Cohen-Corasanti. Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. Furiously Happy by Jenny Lawson. Small Cat Chi, this is volume 5 of the manga series. The Haunting of Lee Harker by Dorothy Coates. Stay Another Day by Juno Dawson. With 3.5 stars we have Restore Me by Tahereh Mafi. I think it's book 4 in the Shadow Me series. Amon by Jennifer Tege. Solange die Welt noch schläft by Petra Durst-Benning. Defy Me by Tahereh Mafi, which I think is the 5th book in the Shadow Me series. Lost in the Neverwoods by Aidan Thomas. Die Mythen des alten Japan by Nellie Naumann. Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens, probably my most disappointing read of the year. Broken Things by Lauren Oliver. One More Christmas at the Castle by Trisha Ashley. And The Overstory by Richard Powers. So for 4 stars we have Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. Monstrous Volume 4 and Volume 5 by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda. The Lives of Saints by Leigh Bardugo. The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Darius the Great Deserves Better by Adib Khorram. On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Wong. Als die Sonne im Meer verschwand by Susan Abulhava. The Other Black Girl by Zakiya Dalila Harris. Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert, Full Disclosure by Cameron Garrett, All the Tides of Fate by Adeline Grace, which is the second book in a duology, A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway, Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi, My Calamity Jane by Cynthia Hand, Brodie Ashton and Jodie Meadows, Wicked Little Deeds by Kat Ellis, Nujeen by Nujeen Mustafa, Small Favors by Aaron A. Craig, House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski, Deathless Divide by Justina Ireland, the second book in a duology, Payback's a Witch by Lana Harper, Pompeii by Mary Beard, Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro, Unterwegs zur Familie Speer by Heinrich Brelor. So now with 4.5 stars, so definitely high recommendations if you haven't read these books yet. The Archive of the Forgotten by A.J. Hackworth. This is the second book in the series. Grey Sister and Holy Sister by Mark Lawrence, book 2 and 3 in the series. Why We Matter by Emilia Roig. Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas. A Curse of Roses by Diana Pinguica. A Chorus Rises by Bethany C. Morrow. The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. All the Stars and Teeth by Adeline Grace, this is the first book in the duology. Harrow Lake by Kat Ellis. Miracle Creek by Angie Kim. The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penna. And The Five by Hallie Rubenhold. So now we're on to the 5-star books, the creme de la creme, you could say. And I wanted to start out with the rereads that always get 5 stars from me whenever I reread them. We have Return of the King by J.R.R. Tolkien, Wondersmiths by Jessica Townsend, the second book in the series, King of Scars by Liber Dugo, the first book in the duology, It by Stephen King, and The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. Okay, now we have 13 books that I gave 5 stars to that I've read for the first time in 2021. So far, I presented you the books in the order that I've read them in their categories, but these I tried to rank. So we have 3 honorable mentions before we get into the top 10. And the first one of that is The Chosen and the Beautiful by Ni Vo. Then we have The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. And Dread Nation by Justina Ireland, the first book in this duology. Okay, now the top 10. On number 10, and it pains me to have it on number 10, is The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Bully. Now this is a YA thriller, but it has a main character that had a white mother and an indigenous father. And so this takes place in a native community, almost at the border to Canada. It's one of those like towns that is like right at the border, and it deals with drugs, with crystal meth, and there is a new kind of version of meth, and the FBI is sure that it originated in this small town, so they're trying to figure out who did that. And we have our main character who is, I think she just finished school and is starting to go to college, and she is trying to help out her family because there have been a lot of tragedies in her family lately. And she gets sucked into this investigation on a personal level, but also on a community level, because she's afraid that the FBI will not value the community, and while solving that murder hurt this community even more, because it is marginalized anyway, but investigations can make things much, much worse. And I love this book. I loved everything about this book. The main character was great. I loved the kind of romantic thing that was going on there. I loved how that was resolved at the ending. I loved the case. I think the mystery is fantastic. You can definitely guess along, and I did guess a few things correctly. And then I also really liked the way we got there, because there was like some actual investigation going on and not just the main character stumbling around and you know, finding clues on her way, which is often the case in YA fantasies. The stakes were so high in this one, which I appreciated as well. It was just all around fantastic. And my favorite thing about it was the community aspect, the way that the main character really valued her elders and the way that she helped them, but they also helped her. So that was amazing. On number 9, we have The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This book had a little bit of a crisis this year with an old interview that the author gave, but I read it before that happened and I did not see it through that lens. So for me, it was a very, very enjoyable read. I loved it. I loved that it made me feel better. It gave me good mood, and that's very rare for books. I do like to read darker books, so this was amazing. And this book, we are following Linus, who is a kind of like a office worker, but he oversees these orphanages for magical children, and he gets this special job to go to this really, really secret orphanage and see whether it is working, whether the kids are cared for. And it's basically about finding what's important in life, finding out, you know, who are the people you want to be around. And I loved it. I loved that it was very overdrawn. I loved the way that the city was described, and then how this like a coastline was described. I loved the characters, even though some of them were like really overdrawn as well, but it just fit all together for me. It just worked. And I really enjoyed it. I also told my partner to read it. He listened to it on audiobook and also loved it. So yeah, if you want to read it, I would recommend. I think most people have by now, so that's great. Then we have Asking for It by Louise O'Neill. So this is the complete opposite. This is a book that will make you sad, it will make you angry, but it is fantastic nonetheless. This is a book about slut shaming, and we have this main character who is a bitch. She is not a very kind person, but then after we followed her for a while, something very tragic happens to her. It is a rape story, and it is also about the aftermath of that. And it deals with the way we tend to slut shame girls. And what this book makes absolutely clear is the fact that no matter who you are, and no matter whether you're likable or unlikable, whether you are a virgin or you're sleeping with lots of guys, sexual violence is never okay. And this is the message of this book, and I loved it. It is hard to read, obviously, but I think especially as a YA book, it does a really, really good job at tackling this issue. And I really enjoyed it, and I would recommend it. This is like, I feel like one that has been a little bit forgotten by now because it came out a few years ago. Then on number 7, we have a book that I was really shocked that it is so far down my list this year, because the 2 books that came before this one were like super high up on my list, and that is Hollowpox by Jessica Townsend. This is a 3rd book in the Nevermore series, and this one I loved. Obviously, it's a 5-star book. I love all the Nevermore books. These are so magical. They're middle grade books, and they definitely have that magic that I loved when I was a child reading. And the main character, Morrigan, is amazing, but this book deals with a pandemic, and it has some kind of a lockdown in it, so it is maybe a little bit of a weird time to read it. At least it was for me when I read it in the beginning of 2021 and we were in lockdown, and we were in a very harsh lockdown where I couldn't even get my hair cut, so don't look back on those videos. But yeah, I did enjoy it. I do love the world. I do love the magical feeling. But yeah, I read even better books this year, which is amazing. So I'm very looking forward to the 4th book coming out, I think in October this year, hopefully, because I can't wait for more Nevermore. On number 6, we have The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. Again, we're going from the funny, hilarious, magical books to the depressing, fucked up books. But Nickel Boys, oh my, that was a book. It deals with a school that actually existed. It has a different name in the book, but it is very heavily based on a school that actually existed. And I think this school was run through around 100 years, so it's really crazy. But the book is set in the 60s, I believe. And it follows a boy who, through some tragic circumstances, ends up in juvie, but they put him in this correctional school. So he's supposed to be made a good man there. But the thing is, for one, he is already a really good guy, and this school is not helping anyone. It's a very, very traumatic place where so many horrible things happen, and there is basically a white part and a black part of the school, and the character we're following is black, so he ends up in the even worse part of the school because of his skin color. And he makes a friend there, and we follow their journey through this school. And then at the end, we also do a little bit of a time jump into the future, and we meet this character again when he's older, out of the school. And yeah, it's horrible. It's a book that I think I read in 2 or 3 days because I just wanted it to be over. You really do not enjoy this book, but it is fantastic. And yeah, so I was glad it was so short because it is really, really hard to read something like that. I think in the vlog I even cried because it's horrible. It's just really horrible. And even the light moments you can't enjoy because you know that they're just like these tiny little like flames in a very, very dark place. And yeah, an amazing book, but you definitely have to be prepared for it. On number 5, we have Rule of Wolves. We're going back to the magical, to the good vibes. This is the second book in the Nikolai duology and the 7th book in this overall series about Ravka by Leigh Bardugo. I love this duology. I love it so much. I love King of Scars. I know that a lot of people didn't, but I did, and I loved Rule of Wolves. And why is that? Because Zoya is my favorite character, and she gets everything she deserved in this book, and I loved it. I know that, you know, for people who are not into this series at all, it doesn't really matter, but for me it was perfect. It made me cry, it made me laugh. I loved it. So yeah, amazing, amazing. I really do hope that we get more books in this world because I want to see like sneak peeks of what Zoya's up to in the future. On number 4, and again, I'm surprised that it is not higher on the list, but there were so many good books this year, is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. And this book is amazing as well. This is the first book in a series, and we're all waiting for the sequel, so please, please give us the sequel. But basically, we're following a girl, I think her name is Bree. Yeah, we're following a girl called Bree. You can see her on the cover and all her like glamour and amazingness. And her mom is killed, and from that day on, Bree feels something going on, and she goes to this like early program on a college, and there she finds out that there might be a secret society which could be involved in her mother's death, and she goes to try to find out what the hell is going on. And this is a King Arthur retelling, which I don't know anything about, so I went into this pretty blind and just going along with it. And I ended up loving this book. It has a bit of a slow start and you have to give it a bit of time. But the ending was so good. I really, really loved it. And this book definitely stuck in my mind. And I can't wait to reread it when the second book comes out. This also has like a love triangle-y thing. But I am very hopeful that it might turn into a, like, what do you call that? I know it's a word in English for it, but like basically a poly relationship with all 3 of them involved. That would be fantastic. But yeah, this has everything. This has a little bit of romance, even though it is insta-lovey, but it is explained why. We have some kind of love to like thing going on with some characters. We have the whole secret society getting into that. We have magic, we have powers, we have different kinds of magic, and it also deals with intergenerational history and the way that Brie, as a black girl, has a very different relationship to history and to her roots than all the white kids that are in this secret society. So purely amazing. I love it, and I hope if you haven't read this yet, you pick it up this year. Number 3 is The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett. I don't think I have to say too much about this book. It has been very popular, but this one is basically the story of two sisters. They're both white passing, and one decides to do that and pass for white, and the other one marries a very, very dark-skinned man, and they have a daughter together. And we're also following the daughters. So the daughter of the sister with the dark-skinned husband, that daughter obviously has darker skin as well, and then the daughter of the white passing sister who marries a white man and has a very light-skinned daughter who doesn't even know that maybe she's not completely white. And yeah, this book was so amazing. I loved everything about it. It had so many more layers and themes than I thought it would, and it was just fantastic. And I even gave it my mom for Christmas because I want her to read this as well. Number 2 is Ace of Spades by Farida Abike-Iyimide. This one, oh, so good, so good. Another thriller that blew me away this year. This one has a little bit of a trope that I don't like, and that is the trope where there's kids in a school and there's someone kind of, what do you call that, blackmailing them. And I hate that trope. It's so overdone, but in this one it just worked for me. This one again had super, super high stakes. You definitely feel like these characters are not safe and they're trying to figure out what's happening. So they're basically the only two black kids in a prestigious school. And in their final year there's suddenly this blackmailer who is leaking very sensitive information about them to the whole school. And it was just amazing. The two main characters worked so well. You have a guy, I still don't know how to pronounce his name, and you have a girl, Chiamaka. Chiamaka is my favorite. Like, she's such a Slytherin girl and I love to see it. And the guy is gay and he's very afraid of telling his family, but again, like, stuff is leaked, so, you know, that's a very high stake for him. And he's like the more like shy guy. He likes music, I believe, and he's there on a scholarship, while Chiamaka has quite rich parents and she's like the queen bee at the beginning of the novel, but then with the secrets being released, that kind of crumbles. And these two characters fit together so well, and I loved that they had to both be there to solve it in the end. That was so amazing. Like, there is not one character who could have done it without the other, and it was just great. It was so great. Such a good book, and I think I will probably reread that because it was so good, even though I've never reread a thriller in my life. And for number 1, this one is a no-brainer for me. When I finished it, I knew it would be the best book of the year for me, and that is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. This is a book about rape culture in the US. It's a memoir about Chanel, who was the girl who was raped on Stanford campus, and when it happened, I think in 2015 or something like that, it was like super big news. And basically she went to a party and got drunk, and a guy took advantage of that, tried to rape her, but he was kind of caught by two cyclists who happened to be coming that way and saw what happened. And so yeah, amazing book, an amazing book about what it feels like to be a victim of sexual violence, a great book to see what it feels like to be part of the American justice system, which is not great, to say the least. It is a hard book to read, a very, very hard book to read, and you definitely have to be prepared for it. But it is also important and it is hopeful. And what absolutely blew me away with this book is how it is written. It is written absolutely beautifully and in a way that takes you by the hand and leads you through this very, very difficult topic, which without being too on the nose. I thought that she had the right amount of explaining things to you, but then also always leaving room for you to come to your own conclusions. But then again, coming in later and kind of saying the conclusion that you got to by yourself. I don't know how to describe it, but it just really, really worked. It's such a phenomenal book, and yeah, again, one that I just asked my partner to read, and he did, and I think he took away a lot from it as well. And I think especially for cis men in this world, it is important to read these books because yeah, she explained everything so beautifully, even though none of the content is beautiful. And that, I think, is amazing, just amazing. So yeah, what can I say? This is also the highest rated one of the books that I've read on Goodreads, so it is deserved. And I wholeheartedly agree. And if you take one book from this list to read, it should be that one. So now the video is probably already hours long, and I'm apologizing for that. I hope you had a fun time watching this, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!